Okay, now we will explore Hyper-V Manager options. Like what are the options available in Hyper-V Manager? So if I go back to my Hyper-V through Hyper-3 VM, inside Hyper-V Manager, as you can see, I have a Hyper-3 hypervisor or Hyper-V host. And on the right side, on the action pane, we have few options. New, it's of course to create a new virtual machine or creating a new hard drive or hard disk. Import, if I have already exported a VM, I can import VM through these options. Hyper-V settings will open the Hyper-V settings for Hyper-3, or I can do this by right-clicking and as well as Hyper-V settings, the same thing. I would like to change few settings here. One of them is where specify the default folder to store virtual disk, virtual hard disk or VHDs. In Hyper-V, virtual machines hard drives or hard disk files are known as VHDX and VHDs. VHD for Gen 1 or Generation 1 VMs and VHDX for Generation 2 VMs. So I would like to change this path and I would like this hard drives to be stored on the side of the VHD folder. And next option is about the virtual machine configuration file, the default folder where to store the virtual machine config files. Again, I would like to change that. I would like to go to E and VMs. That's the folder I would like to use it. I don't have any physical GPU, so as you can see, it's grayed out. I am allowing NUMA spanning for better performance. Live migration, although it's enabled and currently it's set to CRAD SSP, where I have to use the console. For example, if I want to live migrate a VM from Hyper 3 to Hyper 4 or Hyper 2, I need to log into Hyper 3 uh, and use the local console to migrate to it. But there is an option. If we configure Kerberos authentication, then we can do it remotely. It requires Kerberos delegation to be configured, and I will do that when we will reach the in live migration video. At the moment, by default, it allows to do two simultaneously. Sorry, not live migrations. Yeah, two simultaneous live migrations, as well as if you want to do the storage migration. What is storage migration? Storage migration is like moving virtual machine VHD files from one LUN on one hard drive to another hard drive, or from one volume to another volume, or from one LUN to another LUN. It's like storage vMotion in VMware. And live migration, it's vMotion. My live migration is equivalent to vMotion feature in VMware, and storage migration is equivalent to storage vMotion in VMware. Live migration, as again, those who don't know what vMotion is, the virtual machine will continue to run, and Hyper-V will migrate uh, virtual machine sessions, its memory session, its computing from one host to another host, and of course the networking as well. So virtual machine continue to run, no sessions get disrupted, and it is migrate from one host to another host. Why you like to do that? For load balancing among hosts, between hosts, or let's say if I want to do some need to perform some maintenance on one of the hosts, so I can live migrate VM or VMs which are running on host 1 to host 2 because I need to take down host 1 for maintenance. And enhanced session mode, which is enabled here for the users. Another important option is the replication. Hyper-V has also an option that you can configure as a replica or a replication that allows a replication of virtual machines from one Hyper-V to another Hyper-V. For example, you have a production side and the DR side. You can configure Hyper-V replication. So in this case, suppose if I have a VM called VM1, which is running on Hyper 3, Hyper 3 can replicate that VM1 to, let's say, Hyper 4, which is running in DR side. And in case of a disaster, you can run VM1 from Hyper 4, which is in the DR side. So built-in replication feature is also there, and I will cover that also. I'll cover this also in one of the videos. Um, that's it. These are the few settings that you need to just know. Virtual Switch Manager is for managing virtual switches. By default, one switch was created during the installation of Hyper-V role, and it's a type of external switch. Means um, any VM that's using external switch can talk to each other as well as they can communicate with the host itself as well as outside network. Internal network means if I create a switch with the type internal network means they can talk to each other. VM can talk to each other or establish communication with each other as well as the host itself, but they cannot communicate on any other host residing on the network. And private network, if I want to do a total isolation, so I want the communication between VMs only, but I don't want VM to interact with host or external network. VLAN ID, here we can specify the VLAN ID at the switch level. And there are a few other settings which some are related to the virtual switch extensions which are available and MAC address range that it will be assigned dynamically to virtual machines. So these are few settings. Virtual SAN manager, it's a scenario if you want to configure a failover clustering between virtual machines running on Hyper-V hosts. So you can use virtual SAN manager and configure virtual switch, SAN switch. At the moment, it's not part of the discussion. Edit and inspect disk. I will show you these features once we have a disk. At the moment, I don't have any. And this is stopping a service and removing a service. So pretty much simple. So these are the few options in Hyper-V Manager. And in next video, we will create a VM. And once I will create VM, we will explore those options further. Thanks.